There are your insiders, Chris Johnston and Pierre Lebrun. Guys, 2 summers ago, Mason McTavish made one of the greatest plays in World Junior history. Then a few months later, Connor Bedard had one of the greatest tournaments in World Junior history. Pierre, could they be reunited this time for Canada at the Senior Worlds?
That is the idea, James. Men's Worlds Team Canada GM Rick Nash has reached out to those 2 players because those 2 players' teams, of course, have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's why he's only reached out to 2 players so far, James, because all these other teams that he's waiting on to be officially eliminated keep hanging in there in the East and the West. But those calls are coming around the league soon. And obviously no official word from Connor Bedard just yet, James. It's been a pretty busy last couple of years for him with the draft, and you mentioned actually played in a couple World Juniors. But it's expected that the answer will be a yes in all probability from Connor Bedard to go play for Canada at the Men's Worlds. CJ mentioned last week, wouldn't it be amazing if Sidney Crosby and Connor Bedard were teammates at a Men's Worlds? Yes, it's Team Canada's plan to reach out to number 87 if and when the Penguins get eliminated. And they keep hanging in that playoff race, but that will be the plan. In the meantime, Rick Nash continues to consult with Doug Armstrong, Team Canada's Olympic GM, about some of the kind of players that you also want to see on the radar, perhaps for the Olympic team. All these events sort of coordinated here. And finally, of note, Team Canada will keep 1 or 2 roster spots open even after they name their roster for the end of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, just in case there's a couple of high-profile players that want to go join Team Canada.
A lot of buzz right now about this new goalie, Ivan Fedotov, tall in the Flyers net. John Tortorella called him the bleepin' only bleepin' player, I think something like that, to paraphrase, who showed up for the Flyers in their game against the Islanders. And do they want him to stick around already, CJ?
Yeah, he hasn't even played a full NHL game yet. Came in relief on Monday night, and already work is underway on what would be his second NHL contract. And that's because of the unique circumstances at play here. With him being 27 years old, Fedotov would be eligible to be an unrestricted free agent as of July 1st, but I don't expect that to happen. It sounds like considerable progress has been made towards an extension. It might not be something we see announced in season here. It might come a little bit after the year, but certainly from both sides of the equation, Fedotov and the Flyers, I think that they want this to be a longer term stint together, and I do expect him to be signed long before free agency.
Guy we haven't talked about much this year, who we talked about a ton in years past, is Shane Wright, who had a good season in the AHL, back with Seattle, at least for a stint here. What's the plan for the Kraken and Wright, Pierre?
Yeah, scored in his first game back Monday night, and the idea is to give him some important minutes, James. And he played north of 15 minutes on the line with Schwartz and Eberle. Certainly that is contrary to the way that he played fourth-line minutes when he was back in Seattle in November. So the idea is to give him a real role in the games that he plays for the Kraken. But he will go back to the AHL because the team wants him to be part of the AHL playoffs and get that experience as well. But 20 goals in 56 AHL games this year. They've been pretty happy with this play.
It's NCAA free agent signing season. How close is Quinnipiac forward Colin Graf to making his decision, CJ?
It sounds like things are basically imminent there. Perhaps as soon as Tuesday, we'll see who Colin Graf is elected to sign his entry-level deal with. And he's an interesting player, considered one of the jewels of this free agent class. Scored a lot of goals this year at Quinnipiac and had upwards of 20 NHL teams interested in him. Initially, he's withered that list down to just a handful now, and we are expecting his decision to come here in the very near future.
And finally, another blow to hockey fans in Newfoundland. Another pro team comes and now goes, Chris.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Newfoundland Growlers are ceasing operations immediately. They still had 6 games left on the schedule, but those will not be played. The Growlers are going the way of many teams, as you mentioned before, in St. John's, unfortunately. And really what it came down to is the ownership of that team had run into some financial trouble. The ECHL had put in a Tuesday deadline in order to execute a sale. They weren't able to get a sale completed ahead of that deadline, and so they cease operations. The Trois-Rivières Lions, though, however, do have a new owner in place, so they will continue on while the Growlers go away.
Yeah, it's some great hockey fans out in St. John's, and they just keep getting jilted.